Hi, my name is Ann Mazar, and I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee committee, and this is a meeting on October 2nd, 2025, and I represent the Land Use Committee. Why don't we go around? Mike Goddard,
Mike Goddard, representing Select Board.
Barry,
Barry Adirola, Planning Board Representative.
Dan?
Dan Byer, Parks Commission Representative.
Great. This meeting is being recorded and we are starting it now. Did you get a chance to look at the meeting minutes of 8/5/25?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, let's do a roll call vote. Dan,
Dan and I.
Mike, Goddard,
Mike Goddard, aye.
Barry,
Adirola, aye.
Mazar, aye. Great. The warrant articles, did you see, we really just have one warrant article to vote on. And it's to see if the town will transfer $2,514.82 from the beach engineering account into the CPA fund balance account to close out the beach engineering account or act anything in relation thereto. So we're done with this account. Dan's not going to be using it for the beach engineering. And so we just want to get the money back into the general CPA account. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve that article, moving the money back from the accounts you referenced to the CPA accounts,
Okay.
for approximately $2,500.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Dan?
Dan and I.
Mike?
Goddard, aye.
Barry?
Adirola, aye.
Mazar, aye. All right, the next thing is the bylaw.
Sorry, Ann.
Oh, what?
I meant it before, just because Jerry mentioned an email. So there is another account for the beach project that also has 2,000 in it, and that is waiting on some final paving work, which and then that probably will come back to get closed out. But just in case anybody else sees that it's still out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we discussed that last night. Dan and Jeremy indicated, both you and Ann said that it needs to stay put for the time being.
Yeah, because it was money for the engineering and money for the actual work. So hopefully John said he can do it, so that might be actually super cheap.
And what is the last bit that you're doing?
It's the paving on the front around the bike racks needs to happen.
Okay.
And then there's a little spot that needs to get fixed.
All right, the next agenda item is the CPA bylaw update, which we've talked about several meetings. And I think we're all in agreement on it, but we said we were going to vote at this meeting. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the bylaw and then we can discuss it?
I'll make a motion to approve the bylaws as written
Second.
or submitted to the General Bylaw Review Committee.
Second.
Okay, Barry seconded that. Is there any discussion? You have the red line version. We're adding a alternate member at large so that if someone is absent, that person can fill that role, which is really helpful for trying to find a quorum. And I also like it because it's like a member at large, so it doesn't have to be, someone that's on a committee. It could just be the general public.
I have a question. So has this run by town council? And I only ask, I'm 100% in favor. I think it's a good idea. I know CPA is governed by a state statute that we then duplicated. So is this something we're allowed to do?
Well, I know that the General Bylaw Review Committee is going to submit the bylaws, so I imagine that, town council will look over it. Yeah.
I just would hate for CAG kick this back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's really not any substantial changes. That's the biggest change. So. All right,
Is there also a change so the select board would appoint vacancies after a certain period of time to make sure the quorum's there? Was that a change?
it used to say that the town moderator shall make the
Right.
appointment, so we changed it to the select board.
Right.
Yep. The other thing we did is, in terms of, consulting the different boards to find out if they have projects, we did not have on the land use committee, the select board, or the park commission. We added that. That was the other change.
So, I mean, and to Dan's point, then I can amend my motion to add a pending review by town council,
Yep.
successful review by town council.
Yep.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor, Dan,
Aye.
Mike,
Goddard, aye.
Barry,
Ida Roller, aye.
Mazer, aye. All right. The next item is the CPA application. I sent you all the change, and the one change is just to say, because of the unpredictability of the CPA projects involving the purchase of land or historic buildings, the CPA will accept applications on an ongoing basis as needed. However, keep in mind that CPC approval and a Mendon town meeting vote are required to allocate CPA funds. That's just sort of at the beginning, at the beginning of the application. And then the other thing is none of the hyperlinks work. So that's something that we'll have to change. And I don't know if that's something that you can do, Dan?
Yeah, we can fix all of that. That's easy. What links? The links all work for me.
What'd you say?
The links, we don't need to, the links work.
My links didn't. I'll try them again and I'll let
And
you
that may
know.
just, yeah, that may just be how you have, you're looking at it in a document. But we could, well, so this would be a PDF that'll be on the website.
Say like, let's see, the Mendon Open Space and Recreation Plan. It says, sorry, but there is not a web page that matches your entry.
I know, okay, I know what's wrong with this. Well,
Yeah, that's what, oops, shoot. Well, I'm sorry, say that again?
I'll fix that. We don't need to talk about it. That's easy. It's
Okay.
pointing to the old site.
Yeah, and it's the Mendon Open Space and Recreation Plan, the Mendon Housing Production Plan, the Mendon Master Plan. None of those worked for me. So that needs to be changed. So would someone like to make a motion to approve the changes to have that paragraph that I read, and then the with the changing of the hyperlinks so that they work?
So moved.
Barry, is that a second?
Second.
Okay. Just more discussion.
Yeah, this would be good to test drive it and see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. All those in favor, Dan,
Aye.
Mike,
Goddard, aye.
Barry,
Ida Roller, aye.
Mazer, aye. All right. So the only last two things are a records room update and a field lights update. So maybe Dan, could you let us know about that?
Yeah, let me, hang on, I had it. If we do them out of order, so that, because the field lighting is quick, so the field lighting project is effectively done. We're waiting on a small warranty repair with the vendor, but then like to change an outlet, that's not a big deal. I believe there's a surplus of approximately $112,500 that would get closed back out to CPA. As far as I'm aware, we've received the $100,000 grant from the state. I don't know if you, I don't think Tracy replied. I'm not seeing it in Springbrook, but I know she told me she got it. So it may have just not posted yet.
So I have a question on that. The $112,500, did you say?
Yep,
That should go back in the CPA accounts, right?
yes.
And
So
so
we have,
that should
Go
go
ahead.
in the CPA fund, undesignated fund balance, correct?
I don't know, I would think it should go back to wherever it was voted from. But I'm guessing there's a specific in that guidance from the DLS. I'm sure there's a specific process on where this money goes. That's an accounting question.
Yeah, I have a feeling it came from, I don't know, I have to go back and look, but I think it came from, it was recreation, so it all came out of the budget reserve, which all goes back into the fund balance, so there
Yeah.
wouldn't really be a fund for it to go back into, but I need to talk to Tracy about that.
But it's, yeah, it's basically the $100,000 reimbursement grant, and then there was a little bit extra after all the donations, and everything else.
Great, and so have people been using the lights?
Oh, yeah, they've been on, they've been working. I know at this point, it's pretty much done. Softball's got a few games, and that's about it. And we have a tennis lessons that are running on Wednesdays, so they use the lights. But no, this was definitely a huge project, and I'm glad it's done. I think this has been on the list for years and years for parks.
Yeah, that's great. And so have you
Unfortunately.
paid the vendor for the
Yeah,
project?
everything is paid.
Okay.
One of the outlets is defective. You know, it's a $20 part, but I think they should come out and swap it out for us. And then there's another outlet that they forgot to pull the wire to connect it, so they need to come back and deal with that. Unfortunately, that was all discovered after final payment was made. But everything works, the lights work. This is all little tiny stuff that unfortunately.
And what time do the lights turn off, like when they're being used? Is there?
So, I mean, it's not set in stone, so the general rule has been that the park closes at 10. You know, I have the tennis and the basketball court lights are automatically turning on and they turn off at 10. We have had some discussions with youth sports about running things later. And I think parks really hasn't settled on anything. You know, I think the concern is trying, you know, we don't want to have the lights on until midnight every night and have crazy stuff going on, but, you know, 2 tournaments a year, it's pretty low impact to say, you know, this one weekend, they're gonna be up till 11 at night. But that's some of the stuff we need to finalize our policies around and how we'll handle that.
And are they automatically on, or is it, you know, someone's playing in the evening and so you turn them on?
It's all computer controlled, it's an app, we would schedule them. So the way this is working, and I think I actually should put this online, if you see those lights on, they've been paid for in some capacity. And that might be that parks decided to turn them on and budgeted for that, like for the courts being in use. But the ball fields, they're paying for that, so they're requesting dates, we're scheduling. We've come up with a fee schedule so that the in-town nonprofit leagues are basically getting billed the actual cost to run the lights, which is about $4.50 an hour per field per hour. The basketball and tennis courts are 75 cents. And then the non-Mendon groups go up, and then for-profit groups is a tiered system. Ideally, we'll get some for-profit, you know, club teams that'll want to use those fields and pay the $45 an hour. And then that will bank money, you know, back towards facility use.
And then like the basketball court lights, are they on in the summertime or just so people can play, or does it have to be scheduled also?
Yeah, so we voted at a previous meeting to just have them be automatically on 7 days a week from sunset until 10 p.m. during the summer months.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to look, so the old system had an on-demand option where you push the button and they turn on. This doesn't have any of that. We may look into that in the future. And we also, I should add, you can change the lighting levels of the lights. So they don't have to, they can run it, I think it's 100%, 50%, and 25%. So like I don't know the exact numbers, but like that 75 cents an hour goes all the way down to, where's the lower number? Basketball, 10 cents an hour if we run them on low. So when you see them on for the general public, they're actually, I think they're set to medium or low, so it's even less. So I think it was a couple $100 a year it's gonna cost us to do that. And we felt that that was a worthy investment into
Yeah.
recreation.
And do we have a lighting bylaw? Does Mendon?
Not that I'm specific, I think there's stuff in the sign, there's stuff in bylaws, I think there's mention of it in site plan review, there's mention of it in the sign bylaw. I mean, these are modern LED lights. I actually went and stood in the neighbor's front yard, they're not lit up at all. Even the areas outside the fields are almost in darkness.
That's great.
They're very directional.
And how about the records room? Where's that at?
So the deal with the records room, let me find his quote. So we finally got back an itemized quote from JJB, the contractor. Let me open the other document. I just want to see what the difference is between these. So there were some specific projects we were trying to get done. Now that everything is closed out, there's a small surplus. I believe that number is $31,733.59, which is left over after we received the $64,000 from the state. And I think there was a contingency that was voted as part of our contribution. So this is to finish the flooring, which, if you remember, we ran out of money. It turned out to be much bigger than was included in the scope, and the change order was more than we had available at the time. So they pulled part of the floor. They have all the flooring, but it needs to all be pulled up and completely relaid. It wasn't just one little patch job. So that's one option. The bulkhead door in the basement needs to be insulated. Previously, we had talked about building an inner doorway. Now the recommendation is to just insulate the bulkhead and not do something extra. Put gutters on the building that are historically appropriate, but also functional. And a lintel above the bulkhead to support the brick so it doesn't cave in on somebody. The total for that is $26,337. So if we did all that work, we'd be left with $5,300. And then there was also some HVAC work we'd like to do and get an inline dehumidifier. And then something plumb in the condensate drain. And I think that would basically, either we'll use up what's left and we may even potentially need to ask for a little bit more.
And then, and what do you think the records room will be used for? Like, what's the ultimate goal?
I don't know. I think when we first started this, the goal was to look at this in phases. Phase one was just stabilize the building, deal with the water in the basement, the structure, and so that's been done. It's like night and day down there. It's dry as a bone. It's solid. And then phase two, which none of this is accessibility. There's no water, there's no sewer, it's not ADA accessible, there's no bathroom. So you really are kind of limited with what you could do there without having those available. I don't know in terms of use. I know Kathy has been talking to someone who's interested in possibly using it as a public safety museum. Historic district talked about it the other week at their meeting and tried to spitball different ideas. I think at one point we had talked about, could it be available for rent in terms of an office space?
It can't store documents, can it? Or is it?
It could. It certainly could. I think, my fear is that I would hate to see this just get piled full of junk and back where we started. Because that's previously, it was just full of all this stuff that we didn't really know what was in there, and then it started to deteriorate because the building deteriorated. I think it'd be better to have an active tenant in there of some sort, whether that's the town or some third party, that somebody is paying attention.
And I mean, I think there's a larger sort of look at both parcels and municipal property to understand potential uses and things like that. So I think this could fall into that discussion as well. You can make a point of it too.
Yeah,
that should be getting
a need that
some
gets
traction
identified.
coming up.
You know,
I
the
know it-
Taft Library, the second floor isn't ADA accessible. But there are kind of like nice ramps that you can put in that fit historical buildings. And CPA funds could be used for that, if the upstairs wants to be used, if the town wants
So-
to use the upstairs.
Kind of curious too, I was saying about because it's historic, right? And that's sort of an ADA means you can use funds for that sort of stuff.
Yes. Yep.
What, part of his preservation of historical buildings is, I would assume, would be the ability to deal with climate control. So things
Mhm.
don't go south. Is that type of work also eligible for use for the historic accounts for CPA?
Probably if
think-
it's a part of a whole project, but what were you gonna say, Dan?
It can't be maintenance, so it can't be like fixing the library AC that broke, that's maintenance.
Yeah, but what about us installing a more of a climate control system that didn't exist before to make sure that the building doesn't go south,
Yeah, I think, well, like I know, like for town hall, I'd love to see like a building-wide system, and I think you could make the argument that would fall into that because it's for the whole building.
Well, I mean, I know Jeremy's actually looking at the second floor has nothing
Yeah.
up there for the large room
Yeah.
plus the offices front and back. So there's a couple things that came up for the warrant. That was one of them, saying could CPA funds be used to help climatize the second floor of the town hall? I didn't know if that's possible or not. So you might be getting the question on that coming your way, is my guess. So I figured I'd raise it here first to let you know it might be coming. And then the second thing, Dan, for the warrant, Jeremy mentioned kayak rentals and he mentioned CPA. Is that
Yeah, I
something we
was
gotta
gonna-
discuss?
Bring that up, we kind of skipped over the warrant really quick, and then I was gonna circle back to that as another
Okay.
ask. But I think, just so the ask for the record room is, I think this money's already been appropriated for work in the record room, but I think we felt like we wanted to come back to this committee, just make sure everybody was okay with continuing to spend this surplus to finish the phase one, I guess, stuff in the record room. I think way back Barry had asked about, they proposed a vapor barrier under the floor. And I think we did get an answer on that question, I have to go find it again, but so relaying the floor and better insulating the basement and gutters, basically.
I think one of the things Barry said was getting 3 quotes before we move forward. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, that I don't know. Jeremy seemed to think that we could consider this an extension of the project that already went out to bid with the contractor. Certainly the flooring was part of that. And we met with him a couple months ago, and I actually don't remember now. I do have the answer that with rough stone subfloor over basement, the vapor barrier still slows moisture from rising through the larger gaps. It retains most of its, nail holes are small and spaced out, so the vapor barrier retains most of its coverage and effectiveness, working as part of a broader moisture control system.
So would the next step be the flooring, bulkhead, insulate, gutters? Did you say insulating? Oh, insulating the bulkhead.
The bulkhead door needs to be basically
Right.
packed with foam, so it's actually a sealed door and isn't just letting everything, because we're throwing our money away on a dehumidifier to just dehumidify the world if we don't really close that in.
So then, because gutters, historic and functional, and then was it a little roof over the doorway? Just
No, it's called a lintel. It's a piece of metal that just goes underneath at the top of the doorway because it's brick. I'm not clear why there isn't one there. But
so and that would cost $26,327.
altogether, yeah, I have the breakdown. The floors are 12,200, the bulkhead is 2,200, the gutters are 8,600, the lintel is 3,200, and then altogether it's 26,300 something.
How do you spell the lintel?
I think it's LINTEL.
Okay.
Okay. We need Mike. Mike and Megalia would know.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so would you be, if we voted, would you be ready to move forward with this?
Yeah, I think that's been the struggle here is, they're off on big giant jobs all over. And so we'd love them to just find a gap in their schedule and get this done, but he doesn't, and I think we struggled even getting a quote because it's been kind of wishy-washy and this is small fish to them, but I think they would come back and finish this because they want to see it done. Let me see what he said in his email. Kathy. Oh, no. Sorry, hang on. Kathy's been mainly talking to him. No, he did mention a timeline.
Well, would someone want to make a motion to move forward with these projects here for the records room?
I'll make a motion to use the remaining surplus to move forward on the projects outlined by Dan to complete phase 1.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, Dan,
And I.
How did I?
Had to roll her eye.
Mazer, aye. Okay,
We had money for gutters at one point. Did that get reversed? I think I asked that.
it did, yeah.
So that-
Yeah, a long time ago, right? And it just kind of sat there and then we put it back in the CPA fund, yep,
I think we did the bigger project.
yeah, right. Did you want to talk about the kayaks?
Yeah, that was the last one. I'm sorry to kind of dump this on you. So the Parks Commission would like to propose a new CPA project to install a self-service kayak rental station at the beach on that access path. What started this is a vendor that's around that reached out with a proposal. And then I've done some other research on some other options out there. So what they're proposing, it's $35,000. It's an 8-unit, like 8-bay system. I'll try and pull up the picture of it. It's a 5-year contract, and then it would renew for free. We would get 30% of the revenue. It includes an app. It's completely self-service. They service it. They have the insurance. They supply everything. And we just collect a portion of the revenue. There's one of these units in Franklin. Rent Fund is the company. Here, I'll pull up. Let me see if it'll let me.
Do people pay to use the kayaks? Or
So right now, the only use of that space, it's just a public boat launch. We had an Eagle project to build. Sorry, I'm gonna just find the picture of this. Ignore all the other junk, but that's what it would look like. That's bigger, that's 12.
and yours would be, you're
Ours is
proposing
8.
8?
Sorry, I'm trying to find the page that had the picture on it. Oh, there we go. Sorry, so an Eagle project built a kayak rack. We were discussing renting it out, like so you could pay, $100 and for the privilege of being able to leave your kayak at the beach. Unfortunately, that didn't quite come to fruition, and then one of them got killed when the tree fell down.
Who got killed?
The rack got killed.
Okay.
The rack got
okay.
crushed by a tree.
Sorry. It got
Right.
crushed.
Uh-huh.
So
So
we were never
if-
renting anything. It's just it became. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once to find this picture.
So if somebody uses the kayak, do they pay to use it though?
Yeah, so this will work similar like a U-Haul where you pull up your app. I think it's $25. You rent it for 2 hours. You check it out. The life vests are there. The paddles are there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then it's sort of sufficient after? Or where would the money go? The rental?
So that is a question for this group. So if we went with this, well, either option. So, and then the other option I'm looking at is there's a company that sells a self-contained vending system. Same deal, it's 8 spots. It has a little tablet on it. It doesn't have an app, but you go there and tap your card. It's completely self-service. It's a little bit cheaper. The difference is we have to then buy the kayaks and supply all that ourselves, but we own it outright and we get 100% of the revenue. We'd be responsible for maintaining it. If, a paddle breaks, we have to replace it. But we're not lumped in with a third-party company that takes a portion of the revenue. They're claiming, so like their examples, in Maynard is collecting somewhere around $3,000 a year on this system. The total system is generating $10,000, so they get 30% of that. They claim it has a 5-year return on the investment. I think that would be a question of this committee. Would you, if you were to fund this, would you want to see some percentage or all percentage of that money come back to the CPA? So in essence, CPA is loading the money for this project and gets fully reimbursed. That's a consideration, or some percentage or some mechanism of doing that.
Which method do you prefer?
I set this up and have the funds, if it didn't go to CPA, the revenue would go into the revolving fund and get dumped back into the facility. It's not like it goes into somebody's pocket, so it certainly goes to the town in some capacity.
No, my question more was, would you rather go with the rental company or, own it outright?
So that one, I'm still researching that. I actually am leaning towards the solution that we own. We would need to verify with council that that's a thing we could do and that we wouldn't be taking, because the beauty of having a third party company is they take on all the risk. They have all the fancy lawyers and all that. I have heard some concerns. I talked to some other towns that the service from this company is not great, that things break or out of commission and there's a very long delay before they get fixed. And then you're kind of stuck in limbo. And I know that, I would hate to, not that I think there's any danger, but I'd hate to spend a bunch of money on something that's effectively a startup and then have them go under in 6 years. And then, I'm not, we don't even necessarily own the hardware. So we just spent $35,000 and maybe didn't get all our money back. It looks like the outdoor vending system, all told, we probably still spend around $25,000. It was $13,500 plus shipping for the unit. The boats and all the accessories is probably another $6,000. You're probably gonna end up spending a couple $100 a year for a rider on the insurance plan. So it would be cheaper.
What other question?
Has Parks received a large ask for this? I mean, I see kayaks out there. I mean, I have kayaks.
Yeah.
We bring our own kayaks, as I think most people do. So is there a market for this that you've been kind of like pickleball? You got a lot of requests to bring pickleball in. Is the same thing going on with kayaks?
I think there is. Everyone I've discussed it with seems to be pretty interested in this.
Did you bring it to them, or did
yes,
people come into Parks?
Nobody's independently brought this to me other than the vendor.
Okay.
But when I've discussed it with different people, everyone, there seems to be a lot of interest in it. I think it taps a different market where if you're already at the beach, you might drop $25 and go rent the kayak for 2 hours and then come back and go swim, versus load the kayak in the car, drive to the beach. That's a specific, whole activity. Granted, it's free, but you had to buy the kayak. That ramp does get a lot of use. I see people there all the time.
2 hours is a pretty large amount of time for that lake, though. That's the other thing I was thinking about. I'm serious. Like going out there, I mean, we might go out there an hour tops, and then it's sort of it is what it is. I think I would.
I mean,
Sounds
that
like
would
we
be
still
the
have to
advantage.
research options, right?
Yeah, that would be the advantage to doing it ourselves, is I think we'd have more flexibility. So this, they have bike racks rentals and cornhole and bocce ball and stuff that I don't think we would need. I think their market is their network. So you could do this, you could theoretically pay for a membership and go rent bikes and kayaks from any of their stations. They don't have a huge presence right now. It's Dedham, Maynard, Franklin. And then I believe the bike racks, somebody said they're in Concord.
Yeah. To me, it feels a little premature for the upcoming STM, to be quite honest. But I do think it's worth kind of like one of those things, like if that brings more people to the lake, brings more people into town, probably makes sense. I think even I hate surveys, we over survey, but I think this is one of those ones where I'm curious if we could either on the on the website
Yeah.
somewhere we could actually start to get, or Facebook could start to get some generate some engagement for the public at large to see if we have a some momentum. You know what I mean? I think that would be worthwhile doing.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a really good idea. I think I would tend towards not doing the rental third party way, but having the town own it. And then, I mean, I would say the money should go back to the CPA, but we could figure that out. I think it's a really nice option to offer people, though.
I would
Yeah.
think, and I think getting I would probably do like a 50-50 split revolving account CPA until CPA is fully reimbursed. But yeah, I think
That's
you
good.
should.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say the same thing. Is I come up with some agreement that says we'll just keep dumping half the money back until it's paid off. So
I mean, I think it's important to show how CPA is working for the town, and not only just expenditures, but it's a loan to drive some level of revenue
Yeah.
increase with the programming. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think that I agree. I do think we should wait to the annual town meeting until we have more information. And also, like, if you're kind of really set to go, then, you could move on it right in May to set it up. But
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some more research that needs to be done, and more find out, confirm our liabilities and all that, and come up with a cleaner proposal. So I'm fine with that. I do think with the rental company, if we pulled the trigger in May, we would not be live until the following year because there is quite a bit of lead time. But then that's something else to factor into the discussion.
Yeah. I was just curious, like, does a life preserver come with each kayak, or how does that, I would think for
so
liability.
the other system, and I can email out some of this stuff. The other system has lockers. I think they both have. Well, no, one of them, everything's in a cage. The other one, the kayaks are locked to a rack, and then there's lockers. But the paddle and the life jackets are included because that's required by state law or federal law even.
I mean, it
Okay.
feels like the honor system too on the rental side, Dan. So I'm kind of curious if we were to own it, what is the oversight in terms of, time usage, et cetera, and all that. There's a lot of with owning operational considerations you're gonna have to walk through a little bit. Whereas rental, it's all on the third party, and
Right.
if it's an honor system, they're comfortable with it. It's no skin off our.
So I've one of the towns I talked to way up actually in Maine said that they have had some issues with vandalism. The more local towns have not. The advantage to the beach property is it's like semi-staffed, certainly when we're open, but you have much more proximity to have cameras and more visibility. It's not like some of these where it's out down some dirt road and then like an access to water.
I mean, that's if
But
we were
it's-
to own it and run it, that's good. But if we're gonna go rental, I would not want to put any onus on any town employees to keep an eye on anything. That would be all on them.
Yeah, one to your point, so if the rental kayak gets stolen, that's their problem. If our kayak gets stolen, it's our problem.
Right.
But couldn't you write something in that if they use a credit card, you have their credit card number and say, if it's not returned, then they have to pay the price of the kayak,
That's all covered. I think it's more, is somebody going and messing with things or, cheating the system and, I don't know. But I'll look through the open space and rec plan and see if anything, I don't remember that coming up in the surveys, but I'll read through all the comments again.
I also think, Dan, we should revisit just the kayak holders too, because I think that in tandem would be good. For those that own those with the rent, you've got sort of a whole system set up there.
I think there's space to do both. I was actually measuring again today. And we'll have to reassemble and, there's a lot more space down there than we thought once it all got cleared out.
And I'm guessing we've got Eagle Scouts out there too.
Yeah. I know we've had a few. I know Isabella is just trying to get one to do trail work that we've been connecting with. And I think there's more coming down the pipeline.
Well, I think it sounds like a really great idea, a nice way to get people out in the pond and appreciate it. But so why don't we, you figure it out the best way that the Parks and Rec figure out what's the best option and then come back to us.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Is there anything else?
I meant to say this earlier because you touched on it, just the FYI for this committee. So we got a 3-year extension on the open space and rec plan.
Yeah.
Thanks to something the state offered. So that what's on the website now is good till 2033, which means we're eligible for grants. And then we're already going to update the map, but.
Well, it's kind of funny because Dan and Isabel and I, we went over and we changed things and we, checked it and put new maps in, and then we sent it in and literally she responded in an hour and said, okay, you can have the extra 3 years. Yeah. So I'm like, did you look at it? But I think, it's good that we updated it anyway. So, we can just keep adding to it as things happen. Right. Yeah.
Well, I know the one thing we changed an action plan. I think now that we have some full-time staffing to focus on implementing this plan, it's less of just a list that's going to sit on a shelf and 6 to 10 years. So that's good.
Yes. Anything else? All right, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Goddard, aye.
I'd roll a ride.
Dan?
Dan, aye, sorry.
Okay, Mazar, aye. All right, thank you so much. And we'll see you next month.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
You too.